Hi everyone, welcome back to Storytime Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the film from 2020, Breeder. Without any further, let's get started. The film begins with a young woman named Mia going into her room to make love with her husband Thomas's, but he ignores her and returns to sleep. This is irritating to Mia. Once downstairs, Mia looks through her husband's computer and discovers an email from Dr. Isabel Rubin, his business partner. When she opens the email, Mia discovers an image of someone's charred skin with the word 14K scrawled on it. The following day, Thomas watches a video interview about Isabel regarding Resurrecta, a future medical procedure that will restore youth. Isabel notes that even though women will eventually be able to use it, men are currently their primary clientele due to specific biological traits. Following this, Thomas calls Isabel and extends an invitation to visit his home so they can discuss the procedure in more detail. Mia is coming from a jog when she comes across Nika, a Russian woman who looks after a neighbor's child. While they are chatting, Isabel also appears and starts praising Nika for having gorgeous hair. She even lovingly strokes Nika's head to pluck her hair, which she tucks into her pocket. Following that, when Mia and Isabel enter the home, Thomas tells Isabel that this idea is meant to be kept under covers until they have enough money to support the facilities and receive FDA approval. Nonetheless, Isabel contends that their objective should be to accomplish this medical treatment since someone else might do it before them. In an attempt to convince Thomas, she shows him with old pictures of a male client named Peter who appears to be decades younger in the present image. Despite this, Thomas claims to be the business's owner and cautions Isabel not to act without his consent. Later that evening, Mia gets ready to court her husband, and everything goes according to plan, but Thomas abruptly withdraws from her, saying he is infertile and cannot give her what she desires. This infuriates Mia and causes her to leave. The scene then switches to Nika, who is walking home when she runs into a man. She walks on, but a few seconds later, she passes out and is rendered unconscious. When she wakes up, two men are there, talking about how the medication they gave her is meant for cows as an anesthetic. They then torture Nika's body by leaving marks on it with a hot iron. Soon after, they encounter an unexpected obstacle, and Nika seizes the opportunity to force open the truck door, get out, and hide behind some bushes. The following day, Isabel meets with Johansson, a new customer who desires to appear younger, to go over the next course of action. She asks him to sign a non-disclosure agreement and notes the payment amount. They immediately begin the preparations, which include utilize his sperm, taking a mouth swab, and drawing blood. When Johansson urges Isabel for more details about the treatment, she ignores him. When the client complains that he was kept in the dark, Isabel ends the process and sends him on his way. While Mia is cooking breakfast, Thomas asks her to estimate Isabel's age. Mia thinks Isabel is about 40, so she's shocked when Thomas says she's actually 61 and hasn't aged in the 10 years he's known her. Just then, someone knocks on their door. When they answer the door, they see a bloodied and confused Nika outside. After noticing that Nika has D17 burned into her shoulder, Thomas phones someone and demands to take her to the hospital as Mia persuades her to put her trust in her husband. Thomas stops his car outside what looks to be an abandoned factory a few hours later. When he unlocks the door, a man enters and drags Nika inside. Thomas is horrified to see the woman being dragged, but he does nothing to assist her. Mia, in the meantime, worries that Thomas hasn't come back, so she uses his computer to follow his movements. Just then, she receives a message from Thomas informing her that Nika has been admitted to the hospital, even though his location suggests he isn't close to it. Mia then hops in her car and drives to where Thomas is. However, when Thomas enters the building and confronts Isabel about the man who took Nika, she explains that he is a caretaker she hired and goes by the nickname the dog, with his sidekick going by a different name the pig. Thomas says he thought the women had volunteered, but Isabel tells him it's only temporary. She then shows him a photo of Ellie on her computer, and when Thomas sees her, he feels guilty. Isabel comforts him and says she'll help him move over this. Mia comes at the building after Thomas left, and Isabel watches her via the CCTV. She then turns to face the sound after hearing a woman sob. She witnesses a woman bound on a table being violently electrocuted by a man going by the name of Dog. Suddenly, Pig, his helper, emerges from behind Mia. She resists him and they manage to trip her, rendering her unconscious. When Mia opened her eyes, she saw that the dog was pulling her into a room. When Thomas eventually arrived home, he realized Mia was missing. He called Isabel right once, and she told him that Mia was with her. With that information, he heads back to the building once more. Dog tells Mia to change her clothes in the meantime. As she does, she realizes the door is open and tries to escape. But Dog catches her and restrains her by tying her arms and sealing her mouth with duct tape. He then heats a metal rod and applies a 30-for-8 to mark Mia's shoulders. As she cries in agony, Dog splatters his urine on the wall. After some time, Thomas arrives at the building in search of Mia. While inside, he confronts a dog that tells him that his wife is unlike other women. But the dog also says that the test will determine that. At that moment, Dog receives a call from Isabel, allowing Thomas to enter the building for 5 minutes. When Mia sees Thomas, she gets furious and starts to complain about the situation that he's put her in. Thomas tells her not to run away by herself since she might get killed and assures her that he would rescue her quickly. Even though Mia begs him to stay with her, he leaves the room. Then, as Thomas gets close to Isabel, she tells him not to get involved or Mia might get hurt. She takes his phone and tells him not to leave the building. In the meantime, the alarm goes off, and Nika runs around the facility trying to escape. When she finally steps outside Mia's room, she begs for help, but just then, Pig appears from behind and hits Nika in the head with a metal rod. Somewhere else, Johansson returns to see Isabel, and this time he's excited to receive treatment because he met Peter, who looks 20 years younger. Isabel has increased the cost by 50%, and the wealthy guy agrees to pay. However, after multiple attempts, Thomas manages to sneak up to Mia's door and opens it. The couple gets back together, but Mia remembers the 14K photo and asks her husband who she is. Thomas says, "It turns out that Isabel introduced me to Ellie, saying she was his type. Ellie is the girl he met at a party 6 months prior." Although Thomas says he doesn't remember much from that day, he does recall Ellie asking to be restrained, and the next thing he knew, her lifeless body was lying on the bed. Mia begins to fear, wondering how she's going to get out, but Thomas reassures her that he'll save her and disappears into the other room. After a little while, Isabel calls Thomas and tells him about her most recent invention, a biobag that allows her to grow embryos by importing ovaries from other nations. She also admits that some problems still need to be solved by integrating the client's DNA, and notes that she is having trouble finding her match. A short while later, Isabel convinces Thomas to collaborate with her in order to achieve their shared objectives. Subsequently, Thomas pulls Mia in front of Isabel, accusing her of knowing too much and requiring attention. Following a brief argument over who will kill her, Thomas declares that he plans to kill his wife. He then grabs a knife and drags Mia out of the room. He then releases Mia into the hallway so that she can go, but the caregivers see them and start chasing after them. Pig quickly knocks Thomas out. Dog continues to look for Mia in the meantime, and when she finally locates an automobile outside that won't start, the dog catches her again. However, just as the dog is ready to kill Mia, Pig tells Isabel that her DNA matches Mia's. Pig shows up to take her to the operation. She is again knocked unconscious and wakes up while being shackled to an operating table. Isabel then examines her ovaries to determine whether there is a healthy egg. When the dog brings Mia to her new cell, she finds other women, some of whom are pregnant, including Ellie, who is still alive. Ellie, who appears worried, walks up to Mia. Mia then tells her that her husband thought she had passed away. In response, Ellie claims that Isabel tricked her into believing that she had. When the next dog comes, he sees Helena weeping and knows that her tooth hurts. He uses pliers to extract her teeth since she can't stop yelling in pain, so he staples her mouth shut. When Ellie sees this, she can't take it any longer and begins to talk trash to Dog. Meanwhile, the dog enters her cell and beats her up despite the fact that she is pregnant. As a result, she breaks down in tears and runs to call Isabel. Thankfully, the birth goes well, but Isabel takes the baby away from Ellie before she ever gets a chance to hold him. After a while, the dog arrives with some supplies, so Mia purposefully urinates on the ground to enrage him. He then enters her cell to beat her, but Mia takes advantage of the situation to attack him despite being surpassed. She stabs the man after taking his dagger out of his pocket, then releases the other woman, and they depart to find the newborn. They finally come across a room with an unpleasant scent, and when they open a container they find a lot of dead babies thrown away like trash. At that moment, they hear a baby wailing in the distance and flee that way. Thomas, on the other hand, wakes up and begins looking for various tools and keys while trying to find Mia. He opens a cell and finds two women inside. He gives them the key and tells them to release the other women. When a woman enters the lab as Isabel is ready to dissect the infant, Isabel takes advantage of the situation to run away as Pig blocks the women, but the four women assault him and ultimately kill him. Meanwhile, Mia starts searching for Isabel, but the dog shows up first. She hides in the locker, but the dog finds her and demands that she come out. The dog closes the locker, attacks, and just as Thomas is about to arrive and call her name, he strangles her with barbed wire while the two men fight for their life. Shortly after, Mia escapes the locker and grabs the electric taser, shocking and unconsciousing the dog. While all of this is going on, Isabel visits her lab to get DNA samples before running away. As she rushes out, she runs into the freed ladies, who savagely attack her. Later, the dog awakens and finds himself chained to a metal container. He then starts to yell at the women who are surrounding him. But suddenly, one of the women tackles him and stands on top of him to urinate. Isabel manages to untie herself. She grabs the screwdriver near her. When Isabel understands she won't be able to escape at this point, she stabs her heart and falls to the ground. And soon after the incident, the police and ambulance show up. In the final scene, Mia claims the incidents were covered up because Isabel's database and no client name can be found. She also confirms her husband's innocence. Following this, Mia and Thomas resume their routine, peaceful lives. Thanks for watching, and remember to turn on your notifications to watch more movie recaps like this one.